Well, earlier I spoke to the president of Kosovo, Vjosa Osmani. Her country has agreed to process refugees for the United States. I began by asking her, as a former refugee herself, how she now felt watching developments in Afghanistan unfold.
These are really heartbreaking scenes. As a former refugee myself, we are really feeling this every single day. This really amounts to a human tragedy, and I can absolutely say that nobody ever really wants to leave their home unless there is horrific violence and terror, as we can see now in the case of Afghanistan.
So you made a deal with the US back in July to take refugees and process them for America. But was this the scenario that was really being envisaged back in July?
I believe since then, there was at least some information that the employees that worked with the U.S. Army, with the U.S. Organizations there might be in danger at some point in time, but no one really knew exactly when, or at least we in Kosovo didn't. But we were ready, and we showed that readiness without hesitation.
So how many refugees can Kosovo take and process them ready to be forwarded to America?
The exact number is still being discussed, but we're not going to be the country to say no to these refugees, to these people in need, if we have the space in. As much space we have, we're going to use it to shelter them. So
when do you expect your first Afghan refugees?
Probably we will have some arriving sooner than we expected. At the beginning, we thought that it will be a couple of weeks and we will have more time to prepare. But it looks like for some, there is a much bigger urgency compared to some others. We're in touch with our US partners who are doing, as I said, they're compiling the list, but at the same time doing the security vetting. Since there will be meetings in the next 2 or 3 days, the exact dates will be known only then.
Do you envisage Kosovo as a permanent corridor through to America for as long as Afghan refugees need it?
This is not an issue that we've discussed with the United States, but if that is needed, we are ready to discuss this and we are ready to offer that shelter. It is extremely important that, first of all, as human beings, but secondly, as leaders, we show leadership in these kind of very tough situations for humanity. We need to understand that if we don't work together, we will not be able to be successful. And the case of Kosovo shows that only when the United States, the United Kingdom, and other members of NATO got together, they managed to beat the genocidal regime of Milosevic and bring peace to the entire Western Balkans, not just our country.
You've talked about the Kosovan experience leading you to make this big gesture about accepting Afghan refugees. And I wonder what you make of governments, for example, the UK government, which has said it will take 5,000 this year, 5,000 next year, 5,000 next year, and so on, that there is an urgency that some people who are living in fear of their lives under the new Taliban system won't be able to wait till next year. They probably face a death sentence now. So what do you feel about putting these quota numbers on?
Look, I was a refugee myself. It's not like those who persecute you ask you whether you want to leave now or you want to leave in a year. No one leaves because they want to. They leave out of utter desperation. And for that reason, I would really call on all the democratic governments out there to give their hand of help the same way that they did to all of us here in Kosovo, and bring at least some safe haven to these people that have been forced because of the terror that they have been going through. If Kosovo, as a very small Balkan country, can do it, every other country can do it. We just need to show our big heart.
And you're working hand in hand with the US, but I wonder how you look into Afghanistan and you see how one country can disrupt in a way the entire world. What do you make of the fact that they're able to act almost with impunity?
It does show how fragile peace in the world is, and it does show that commitment needs to continue, especially by political alliances, political and military alliances such as NATO, who have a specific obligation to step up in these kind of situations. So I do hope that, once again, members of NATO individually, but at the same time, NATO as an organization, will know how to deal with this very fragile security and humanitarian situation.
Finally, Who do you think in that region can exercise any kind of control or any influence? Is it India? Is it Pakistan? Is it China? Is it Iran? Is there anybody, do you think, any nation, any particular grouping of nations that can have some leverage in Afghanistan?
Perhaps I would answer the question on who should, and that is the people of Afghanistan. They should have a say. Unless that happens, we will not see peace and democracy in that country, no matter how much other countries around the region try to help, or sometimes not, because we see that the Russian influence is never anywhere in the world a positive one in terms of peace and security and development and stability. But I think that only when we see that the people of Afghanistan are having a say on what's happening and on their fate, we will not be seeing or listening any positive news from that region, unfortunately, or that country specifically.
Madam President, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Boris Johnson faced criticism from all sides during the packed debate.